everyone, so today we're looking at converting between fractions, decimals and percentages. We're not really going to be doing much with the fractions today, that's more for next lesson, but mostly focusing on decimals and percentages, but the overall topic is fractions, decimals, percentage. Okay, so before we start, we've just got a couple of reminders. So to convert a percentage into a decimal, that's what we're going to do first, but before we do, so reminder one, percentage, that just means out of 100. So 10% would be 10 out of 100. 100% would be 100 out of 100, so the full amount. So percentage means out of 100. And then a reminder about decimals as well. So the second column after the decimal point is the hundredths column. So if I've got this decimal here, 0.26, the naught, that's the units column, 2 is in the tenths column, so that means I've got 2 tenths, and 6 is in the hundredths column, so that means I've got 6 hundredths. So a slightly different way you can think about this is, rather than thinking about it as tenths and hundredths, we can look at these two columns. So we've got our hundredths and we've got our tenths. Rather than thinking about this as 6 hundredths and 2 tenths, we can think about it actually as 26 hundredths, and that'll come in useful later on. So bear that in mind as well. So rather than thinking about it as tenths and hundredths, you can also think about it as just 26 in the hundredths column, but obviously you can't fit 26 in one column, so it's like the 2 has gone into the next column. Okay, so let's do an example of how we convert from decimals to percentage. So we've got our decimal here, that is 0.07, and we want to convert that into a percentage. So we've got 0.07, so we can see what we've got here. This column here, that is the hundredths column. So we've got 7 hundredths. And we saw before that a percentage, that just means out of 100. So if 1 hundredth is 1 out of 100, and 7 hundredths, that is 7 out of 100. So from that we can go straight away from a decimal to what our percent is. It's just 7%, because it's 7 hundredths, so that is 7 out of 100. So we've got our answer, 7%. So you can kind of do it just by thinking about that. The other way we can think about it is, if we've got 0.07, what we're doing to go from this decimal to this percentage, we're timesing by 100. And the other way you can think about that is, when you times by 100, you're moving the decimal point 2 places. So each time, if you times by 10, you're moving it 1 place. If you times by 100, you're moving it 2. So if we start with 0.07, so that's times 10, that's times 10, so overall, if we move it 2 places, we are timesing by 100. And then we end up with 7.0, or 7. So we can see, if we timesing by 100, that is the way to go from a decimal to a percentage. So the way we do it is we times by 100. So I'll just make a note of that. To get from a decimal to a percentage multiplied by 100. And this is really useful. So to get from a decimal to a percentage multiplied by 100. Okay, so let's do another example. So again, we'll think of it the first way that we did before, but we will also do it the more mathematical way as well. So if we've got 0.14, so the problem is with this, it's not obvious straight away how many hundredths we have, because we've got a hundredths column here, but we also have something here in our tenths column. So this is why I was saying at the start that we can think about this, rather than thinking of it as 4 hundredths and 1 tenth, we can think about it straight away as just 14 hundredths. So we've got 14 hundredths. So bearing in mind what a hundredth is, 1 hundredth is 1 out of 100. We can see from that that 14 hundredths would just be 14%. So let's see if we can do that the same way that we did before. So if we have 0.14, if we times by 100, what that does is it moves the decimal point 2 places. So that gives us 14.0%. Well, 0.0, we don't need to put that, so it's just 14%. So you can see both methods get you the same answer. There's thinking about its hundredths, or there's timesing by 100. I think I prefer this method because it's a little bit quicker. Just timesing by 100, you move the decimal point 2 places to the right, and that tells you your answer. So one last example, to convert a decimal to a percentage, we just multiply by 100. So 0.47 times by 100 is 47%. So we can see that if we move the decimal point 2 places because we times by 100, that's 47.0, 47%. So really, really quick and easy, this one. So it's the same as moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. Okay, so now this is one for you to pause the video at and have a think about. So look at my hint as well. 0.3 is the same as 0.30, so you might be better writing it as 0.30 first. So pause the video, have a think, see if you can do this one, and then we'll go through this in a second. Okay, so assuming you've paused the video and had a go, let's go through this one. So 0.3, so my hint here, 0.3 equals 0.30. So I'm going to write it, instead of writing it as 0.3, I'm going to write it as 0.30, and we'll see why I do that in a second. So we know that to get from a decimal to a percentage, we times by 100. And we saw before that that is the same as moving the decimal point 2 places. So if we move it 2 places, we've got 30.0, so that is 30%. So if we moved it 2 places, we've got 30%. So the tempting thing would be to think, oh, maybe it's 300%, because we've just moved the decimal point 2. We've got to be very careful. So if there's just one digit after the decimal point, doesn't change the method, we just write it with our hundredths column as well. So we don't get confused by that. So really common mistake, that one. Okay, so now it's time for you guys to have a practice. So here we've got a few questions. I don't need you to do all of them. Maybe try the first 2 or 3. If you've got it, that's great. The answers are going to pop up after this, so if you want to pause and have a go, pause now, have a go at the first 2 or 3. Check your answers after each one, just to check you are getting it right. And then this will be the sort of questions on the Dr. Frost that is question 1 to question 6. So the first few Dr. Frost ones. So if you're feeling confident with it, you can just do maybe 1 or 2, and then have a go at the Dr. Frost ones. But I do want you to have a go at this before you do Dr. Frost, because then the Dr. Frost will show me what you can do. But if you go straight onto it, you might make some silly mistakes. So answer about to pop up now. So check the answers to the ones you've done, and then we'll move on. Okay, so we've looked at converting a decimal into a percentage, and we saw that we have our decimal, we times by 100, that gives us our percentage. We're going to look as well at how we go back. So if we're going from a percentage to a decimal, it's actually really straightforward. We just do the opposite. We divide by 100 instead of timesing. So let's say we have 62%. We divide by 100, so what that does, so 62, I'm going to write it as 62.0. So when we times by 100, it moves the decimal 2 places to the right. If we divide, it moves it 2 places to the left. So we're going to end up with it there. So as a decimal, 62%, 0.62. So we can see, very similar idea, just going the other way now. So let's have a go at this. So 72%, let's convert this into a decimal. So we saw we divide by 100. And we saw that what that does is it moves the decimal place. So if we have 72, we'll write it as 0.0, so there is a decimal point there. We're going to move it 2 places. So that is going to be 0.72. We don't need the 0 because that's just saying the 0 thousandths. So 0.72. So same idea, we're just moving it 2 decimal places, but now it's the other direction because we're dividing rather than timesing. Okay, and one last one, and then we'll get some practice. So 32%. So to go to a decimal, what do we need to do? We are going to divide by 100. So we write out 32, and we write it out with the decimal, so 0.0, so that's just saying 0 tenths. So it's fine to do that, it doesn't change it. So we've got our decimal here, and we're going to move it 2 places to the left now. So it's going to end up in front of the 3. So we're going to have 0.32 as our decimal. So really very similar to going from a percentage to a decimal, just you're moving the decimal the other direction. Okay, so again, a few practice ones before you do the Dr. Frost. On Dr. Frost, this is going to be question 7 to question 12. But I would like you to pause, maybe have a go at the first 3. If you're feeling a bit shaky, maybe do a few more, and the answers are about to pop up now. So check your answers, check you're getting them right. If you are, move on to the Dr. Frost. If you're not, maybe have another go or skip back and watch the example one again just to check you've got it. And one last thing, these are a few that you'll need to know by memory. Don't worry too much about the fraction column so far because we've not done that yet. But the good news is using the methods we've done today, you'll be able to work out these second 2 columns. So although it's good to remember them because they come up really often, it's really good to be able to just have them without having to work them out. You can actually work these ones out. So you don't, ideally you'll remember them. It's like times tables, it's much better to be able to do them quickly. So that's it. So Dr. Frost is the task today. So go and have a go at that. Email me if you have any questions or problems.